Jesus was a rock star. He brought
We are doing a series called Habits. Good to see you, Biff. My goodness. I did? Oh, I had it on the screen, but I didn't do it. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that, everybody. You got a message. Funny. Would you pray with me? Would you say, Jesus, help me to be what you want me to be, do what you want me to do, because people without you go to hell. Amen. Thank you, wife. I had it up there, but I didn't. Oh, yeah, thank you. She's right up there. Yeah, anyway, now I completely lost what we're doing today. Oh, yeah, habits. You see, and we did that to illustrate what happens when you get out of your habit. Everything falls apart, and I mentioned that last week. Up there is the QR code if you want to zap that really quick, and I tried to have that up for a while here before church as well, in case you wanted to get it, because that was your chance, and now your chance is done. A quick review of last week. The most powerful thing in this world that you can think of is the habits that you have. So think about what what did you do your last normal day? Like your last normal day that you had, what did you do? Most of our normal days do not consist of you deciding to do this and that. A normal day for you is made up of habits. As a matter of fact, at Duke University, they actually study this because academia doesn't have enough to do. All of the actions that you take in any given day, 40% of them require no thought at all. If you ever gotten in your car and you're driving someplace and where you're going, you go someplace else just because it's a habit and you don't realize it until you're there. I remember bringing my kid to her daycare instead of the school bus, when we was transitioning from like that preschool to kindergarten type thing. And all of a sudden I was there. My whole life falls apart without habits. And if you want to change your life, the way you change your life is you change your habits. And really, those are the little pieces. Those are the little things that make up everything else. So in order you want to change that, you got to change your habits. Our life is a sum total of not the big stuff. People like to think that, life is about big stuff. Life is actually about all of the little things. It's not the big things. Last week we talked about this and we mentioned this, but I just want to mention it again because it's really important. We said the goals, they don't determine your success. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. Every self-help book I've ever said, they said if you don't make a goal, you're not going to get there. I mean, obviously, goals are important, but every goal is destined to fail unless you have a plan to see that goal come to fruition. And maybe you've had this experience. You read a book, and they'll have you do things like, if you've read some self-help books, they're like, write out your 1-year plan, your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan, and dream and paint it and put what it is. And then it comes and your goals don't happen like you thought they would, right? I mean, at least that's me. I can dream big. Having big ideas and dreams has never been my issue. But where does the breakdown happen? Well, the breakdown happens in the systems that we put in place to see those, because those goals are not made up of one big thing, but they're made up of lots and lots of small things. We looked at this quote last week. You don't rise to the levels of your goals. Rather, you fall to the level of your systems. And so successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. Now, we just glanced at Daniel last week, but we're going to look a little more closely at Daniel today. Because Daniel gives us an incredible example. Now, you might remember Daniel. Daniel in the... Indeed, a couple of you actually know what that is. And you all know Daniel about his lion's den, right? That was in all of your children's Bibles. One part of that story that wasn't in your children's Bible is the part where they throw in the other wise people and the lions eat them before they hit the ground. How cool would have that been to watch, right? And so Daniel's in there all night long, but they throw in these other guys, and the lions leap to meet them in the air. We're going to meet Jesus in the air. Hopefully that'll be different. But the lions meet him in the air, and kill them before they hit the ground. That didn't make it into your children's Bible. But Daniel was, he had the reason why he was attacked was because of his incredible consistency. Check this out, Daniel 6:4. The other administrators and high officers, see, Daniel was the best of the best. Of all of the officials, he had the most wisdom, he had the most favor. And because of that, that elicited jealousy. You ever been successful and had people start gunning for you? You know, there's just this little bit of jealousy, and all of a sudden you begin to smell it, and you realize that you don't see my success as your success. You see my success as a threat to you. And that was the case here. There's that seed of jealousy was inside of them. And it says they began searching for some fault in the way Daniel was handling government affairs. Unfortunately, Daniel was really good at what he did. But they couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn. Now, if you've been hanging around me for a while, and I'm talking about David, I will mention that some people in the Bible irritate me. And some people in the Bible that irritate me, one is Joseph, because he just makes every right decision, right? Daniel's another one of those guys. It's a little harder for me to relate to him because he just did it right. I mean, he had the favor of God. He made good decisions from the very beginning, all the way through. I've screwed up enough in my life that it's not quite as relatable to me as others. But he was so good, they were getting jealous. They couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn. Oh, to be a dude that they can't find anything to criticize or condemn. If you know what that's like, I don't. But he was faithful, always responsible, and completely trustworthy. And that was so frustrating because he in his excellence, his dedication, his discipline, his leadership, it was just good. Everything he put his hands to, it just worked because he was that kind of guy. And so they're having to come up with something. And so then this happens, 6:3. It says, Daniel soon proved himself more capable than all of the other administrators and high officers because of Daniel's great ability. The king made him plans to place him over the entire empire. So now he's about to get a promotion. And so the volume is turned up, and now these guys really got to find something on Daniel because they certainly didn't want Daniel over them. So the high administrators and high officers began searching for some fault, but he was always responsible and completely trustworthy. So they concluded, our only chance of finding grounds of accusing Daniel will be in connection with the rules of his religion. In other words, there's one thing that we know about Daniel. He's so consistent. He's so good. If we want to get him, it has to have something to do with his God. If we want to get him, it has to have something, because Daniel had a system. He had a system of going to God 3 times a day. Check this out, 6:10. It says, but when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, I got to tell the boy, every day he would get by his window and he would pray 3 times a day in a very public way. And so they got together and they said, I got an idea. Let's make it illegal to pray to anybody but the king at these certain times of the day. So they go and say, hey, king, you are so amazing. You should be the only person anybody ever prays to. So they set this up because they knew Daniel, that they knew he wouldn't violate his God. So, but when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and he knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with its windows open towards Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to God. When the pressure was on and things were bad, what did Daniel do? He kept his habit, just as he had always done before. He prayed. One small habit. And out of that small habit came his identity. It was what he was known for. It was that one small habit that gave him confidence. It was that one small habit that kept him connected with God, that he was able to have faith. And what I want to say to you today is that it all starts with one small habit. I don't know how your New Year's went. Maybe you had some New Year's resolutions. That's why we're doing this in February, because I figure you probably screwed up all of your New Year's resolutions by this point in time. And we start out pretty idealistic. Oh, I'm going to do it different this year. I'm going to lose weight, get smarter, quit kicking the dog. This is going to be the year when everything is going to change. And we make this big list, and of course it's insurmountable, and we fail. Well, experts tell us, and it's in lots of different books and that there are things, they're keystone habits. They're a starting point, and it's before everything begins to fall apart. So I want to ask you today, based on who you want to become, what habit do you need to start? Based on who you want to become, what one habit do you need to start? And it should be a small habit. It should be a little thing, all right? Because little things make a big difference.
When your cable company keeps you on hold, you get angry. When you get angry, you go blow off steam. When you go blow off steam, accidents happen. When accidents happen, you get an eye patch. When you get an eye patch, people think you're tough. When people think you're tough, people want to see how tough. And when people want to see how tough, you wake up in a roadside ditch. Don't wake up in a roadside ditch. Get rid of cable.
Don't wake up in a roadside ditch. The little things, they matter. Now, there's a whole series of those commercials. I just love them. You know, you say one wrong thing, and then your kid dates a guy with an earring, and then she's on drugs. It just goes crazy. But experts tell us that it's the small habits that matter. It's the small things that we do that matter, and one leads to the next. And I don't want to take too. But I had this happen in my life about 3-4 years ago. Now, just a little bit about me, and don't worry, I'm not as crazy as I might come across, but I've always been kind of manic. I've always gotten really excited about things, and then I would come back the other way, and I would get real depressed, and that's just kind of who God made me, you know. And there've been times in my life, if I went to the doctor and whined about it, I probably could have gotten him to give me something. But I knew that if I did that I would lose the high as well as the swing, you know. And so, but about 3 years ago, I had read it. I had been reading about mindfulness in all these self-help books. It seemed like every one that I read, and I thought, you know, and then I began to read about that and discovered that it was basically meditation. Then I thought, you know, my Bible talks about meditation, and so I realized, and so anyway, about 3 years ago, I downloaded an app called Calm. I still use it almost every day, and I began to do these 10-minute meditations. Now, before you freak out about meditation, they would have you repeat certain things, and I would just use Bible verses instead, you know, because God's people were meditating long before Buddha was born, okay? The people of God were meditating, and the research on meditation is just huge. I mean, it's, they've been researching it a lot in the last decade or so, and there's all kinds of science of all the good things that can happen in your life because of meditation. If you go to the doctor for chronic pain, it's very likely that your doctor is going to recommend some kind of a mindfulness regime. If you go to the doctor for depression, it's inconceivable that your counselor isn't going to recommend some kind of mindfulness thing. And so I thought, I'm going to start doing this. And so I began doing this. And just so you know that habits are not easy for me. They are, it's tough. I mess it up all the time. And so I began, doing this. And then about a year and a half after that, I was watching YouTube, and there was a video in there about, and the video was cold showers. TED Talk cold showers. This person gives a whole 20-minute talk on the power of cold showers. The idea is that you start your morning with a cold shower, and then you endure that pain, and then the whole rest of the day is good, because you've proven that you can endure a cold shower. And apparently there's some science behind that as well. And then I thought, the pain is the point. So I thought, Lord, I think I've been fasting wrong, because the pain is the point. I've been doing WIMP fasting and just trying to avoid hunger. I need to embrace the pain, as it were. So then I had an incredible fast, best fast of my life. I haven't even been able to replicate that, because when you're a Christian, you walk in grace as well. For some reason, I just had grace to fast in a way that I had never done before. And so, but still doing the meditation, it was what I needed to focus my heart and my mind and to do this. Then, coming back a year ago, this last January, flying home from Norway. We had Christmas in Norway a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago. And I wrote down, I remember, Lord, all I want is you, please give me the morning back, And all of a sudden, when I got back, my habit now, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock on Sundays, and whenever I wake up on Saturdays, because I had no alarm on Saturdays, but it's usually about 6 o'clock on Saturdays. But during the week, 4 o'clock in the morning, my alarm goes off, and I get time with the Lord. And it's a year later, and I'm still doing it. And I can't even begin to tell you what a miracle that is for me. See, when I was in high school, it was my habit to get up at 5 or 5:30, and then I would drink a bunch of coffee. That's why we call that prayer juice at our house, coffee, because the more you drink, the better you pray. And that was but when I started in the full-time ministry, though, my colleagues didn't get up that early in the morning, and I was just getting worked, 50, 60 hours a week, and so my devotional life fell apart. And I can't even begin to tell you how many times in my adult life, being in the full-time ministry, said, God, I just wish that I could go back to when I was in high school and I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and spend this time with you. That was when we really got to know each other, and that's when everything, Lord, why can't I have that back? But no matter what I did to try, it would fall apart. It would be a little while. I would sleep in one day, and then it would be done. And I remember it was this summer. We had a vacation, and we left for vacation. It was one of those vacations that were a busy vacation. You're up late at night and that kind of thing. And I had a fear. I can tell you, honestly, my heart was afraid that I would get back from that vacation, and I would screw up my devotions again. And I would get out of the habit and get out of the rhythm. And I can't even begin to tell you the joy that I had when it was that next morning, 4 o'clock, and I was up and in my chair spending some time with the Lord. Now, I say all of that to say I don't think that I would have been up at 5 o'clock this morning if I hadn't started doing that mindfulness meditation 3 years ago. One habit builds on the next, and it grows into something better. I think that God had to do something in my head or whatever. And so what I want to ask you today is, what is your one habit that you want to put in your life? How do you create a new habit? This is all the experts, they tell us this. There's a habit loop. You need a trigger. You need to do something at some moment that you know to do it, every day. You need a trigger. And if you're like me, if that trigger doesn't happen for whatever reason, you are off your rhythm and your habit has no chance. So there's a trigger, then there's an action. Now, when there's an action, it's important that there be some kind of reward. And so whatever that might be, and then it goes back again to the trigger, and that is the habit loop. If you want a little more on the habit loop, I almost played you a video that would tell you all about the habit loop, but I encourage you to Google that on YouTube or something. Lots of science with the habit loop and how you can give yourself rewards. But it's absolutely imperative that when you are trying to get a new habit, there's some really important things. First off, it needs to be obvious. In other words, if there's any gray area in your habit, it's not going to become a very good habit. It has to be very obvious and in your face. The other thing is it has to be easy. Now, when I was doing my meditation habit, it was only 10 minutes. I would just go in and I would tap my little app, and they would say a few things, and then I would almost pretty much immediately I would link that meditation to a 4-line prayer. A lot of you have heard me talk about these 4-line prayers, and what happened. And the cue to do your habit also has to be really obvious. And this is what's key for me. It is start small and grow. Start small and grow, because that's how you can begin to create a system in your life. So I'm going to give you a phrase, and I want you to remember this phrase. Maybe whip up your phone and take a picture of it, but I think you might even be able to remember it because it's pretty simple. This is how you start a habit. I will blank after I blank. I will cuss after it's not a bad habit. I will blank after I blank. What do you want your habit to be? Remember, it should be obvious and it should be small. And then let it grow. Because one thing leads to the next. I will blank after I blank. And I've even asked the Lord, and might just pray right now that the Lord maybe quicken something to your heart. Because maybe you can't change everything with your New Year's resolutions. But is there one thing that you could stick into your life that could begin to make the difference, that can act as the foundation that everything else begins to be built on? And for me, that foundation was meditation, of taking my heart and mind and learning because meditation is not blanking out your mind. Meditation is intense focus on one thing. That's meditation. When you study it, very little meditation is emptying of the mind. Meditation is very simply focusing on something. But it had to be at the same time every day. And then that's it. It's that simple. That's all it is. I will blank when I blank. And I love it when the wisdom of God is born out in culture. You may have seen this before, but I just want to share it with you this morning.
If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. To pass SEAL training, there are a series of long swims that must be completed. One is the night swim. Before the swim, the instructors joyfully brief the students on all the species of sharks that inhabit the waters off San Clemente. They assure you, however, that no student has ever been eaten by a shark, at least not that they can remember. But you are also taught that if a shark begins to circle your position, stand your ground. Do not swim away. Do not act afraid. And if the shark, hungry for a midnight snack, darts towards you, then summons up all your strength and punch him in the snout, and he will turn and swim away. There are a lot of sharks in the world. If you hope to complete the swim, you will have to deal with them. So if you want to change the world, don't back down from the sharks. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchkin crew, we called them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers. The 9th week of training is referred to as Hell Week. It is 6 days of no sleep, constant physical and mental harassment, and 1 special day at the Mud Flats. The Mud Flats are an area between San Diego and Tijuana where the water runs off and creates the Tijuana Sloughs, a swampy patch of terrain where the mud will engulf you. It is on Wednesday of Hell Week that you paddle down to the Mud Flats and spend the next 15 hours trying to survive the freezing cold, the howling wind, and the incessant pressure to quit from the instructors. As the sun began to set that Wednesday evening, my training class, having committed some egregious infraction of the rules, was ordered into the mud. The mud consumed each man till there was nothing visible but our heads. The instructors told us we could leave the mud if only 5 men would quit. Only 5 men, just 5 men, and we could get out of the oppressive cold. Looking around the mud flat, it was apparent that some students were about to give up. It was still over 8 hours till the sun came up. 8 more hours of bone-chilling cold. The chattering teeth and the shivering moans of the trainees were so loud, it was hard to hear anything. And then one voice began to echo through the night. One voice raised in song. The song was terribly out of tune, but sung with great enthusiasm. One voice became 2, and 2 became 3, and before long, everyone in the class was singing. The instructors threatened us with more time in the mud if we kept up the singing, but the singing persisted, and somehow the mud seemed a little warmer, and the wind a little tamer, and the dawn not so far away. If I have learned anything in my time traveling the world, it is the power of hope. The power of one person, a Washington, a Lincoln, King, Mandela, and even a young girl from Pakistan, Malala. One person can change the world by giving people hope. So if you want to change the world, start each day with a task completed. Find someone to help you through life. Respect everyone. Know that life is not fair and that you will fail often. But if you take some risks, step up when the times are the toughest, face down the bullies, lift up the downtrodden, and never, ever give up. If you do these things, the next generation and the generations that follow will live in a world far better than the one we have today. And what started here will indeed have changed the world for the better.
So maybe you can't change everything this year. I was listening to one preacher. He said that he does one new habit every year. And he started out with flossing. That was his habit he was going to do. And he built on that. And the same concept as making the bed. When you start off with one thing, you know you did that one thing. I can tell you, for me, that one thing was meditating about three and a half years ago. And it was like some days were terrible. Some days I would be distracted, and it would feel like a total waste of time. But the nice thing about habit is habit keeps you there even when it's not good. Now, I get up early in the morning. Some days are not very good. But all day long, even if it feels like my prayers are bouncing off the wall, or if I'm just really tired and distracted, or even if I'm really depressed, even if, because Scott is a bit moody, he's on the bottom up, but I know I got up. I was there. Lord, I'm here. You can do whatever you want with me because here I am. And you know what I discovered? When bad days come, and sometimes there's bad days, they kick your butt. What you think was going to work doesn't. You fail. And you're left wallowing in shame and disappointment, and your goal that you had written down on your yellow pad just turns to dust in your hands. But can I tell you that even on the worst days, when the next 4 o'clock in the morning rolls around and I'm in my chair with my Jesus, the day fades. And I won't tell you that those aren't bad days, but they just don't get to last. So, I'm asking you, I will blank after I blank. And I would encourage you, maybe not so grandiose, maybe not so huge, but just what is one thing that you could stick into your life that could change everything once it's built on? It might be making your bed. Full disclosure, I don't make my bed. Everybody's still in it when I leave. But for me, making my bed was learning how to meditate. I meditate badly, you know. And then everything changes. What I will blank after I blank. Maybe it's I'll eat a better breakfast. Maybe it's I'll listen to one Christian worship song. Maybe it's I'll open up and I'll start a 1-year Bible. I've tried to do that so much. I've read the Bible multiple times, but never systematically. I just think of that, you know. If I have to do it every day, it's very difficult for me. And I have one more thing that, you know, the world has a lot to say about habits, how wonderful they are. But the great thing is that when we are Christians, you see, we get something else. We get grace. And one of the prayers that I pray, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. It's one of the very first ones that I started doing. And I still go back to it. It's very ancient. People have written about the Jesus prayer going back to all the way to 300 AD with the early church fathers. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And the mercy, the cry that yells out to me in that, when I say have mercy on me, I don't mean, Lord, forgive my sins, because he's already done that. Jesus died for my sins. I don't need that. That's not the mercy I'm looking for. He already gave me that mercy. The mercy that wells up in me when I say, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner, it's, Lord, please don't let me lose this habit. Don't let me lose this habit. Because if I lose this habit, I lose everything. And of course, for me, that habit that is most precious with me is the habit of spending time with my Jesus. It's everything. It's everything. So I will blank after I blank. And if you would, maybe just close your eyes with me for a minute or open them just enough. But write it down someplace. You can write it down in your prayer card if you would like us to be praying with you and for you to help keep that habit going. Because we need a lot of grace. I told you I had that amazing fast. I just had grace to fast. I think that sometimes God gives us extra grace for something. So Lord, right now, I just pray that you would give us extra grace and that your Holy Spirit would speak to us right now. Speak to every person in this place. What is the little thing that we can stick in our lives today? What's the little thing that we can begin to do, whether it's making our bed, flossing our teeth, or meditating, or whatever it might be, God? What is something that we can do? And Lord, that because we're Christians, we'll make it an act of worship. We'll say, Lord, this is my one thing. And then, God, I pray that you would give us grace to help us do it. Because I know what it's like to just fail so miserably and powerless to it. But I also know what it's like for your grace to come up underneath me, and all of a sudden fasting is easy. All of a sudden getting up in the morning just happens. Lord, it's grace. And God, I just pray over every person in this place. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, you're the only one who can do it. Have mercy on us. And Lord, the mercy that I cry out for today is for each person here, their one thing. I will blank after I blank at this moment, in this time, every day. God, I'm going to do this as an act of worship to you, a new habit in my life. Lord, I thank you for taking us where we are and then growing us into who you want us to be. So, dear Jesus, come and do what only you can do. Be who you can only be, because, Lord, without you, people don't go to heaven. I just pray, God, that you would do whatever you got to do inside of us. Give us the habits that we need. Because, Daniel, it was no one big thing. It was just him daily pursuing you. I'm going to be quiet for a minute now, and I just want you to open up your heart and mind to the Holy Spirit and let him whisper something to your heart, because all of us can choose one thing and say, this is my new one thing. In Jesus' name, amen.
Jesus was a rock star. Can I get a witness?